Carlo Ancelotti is perhaps the quintessential Real Madrid manager. The likes of Miguel Munoz or Vicente Del Bosque are probably more specifically associated with the club, however Ancelotti is closest to what would be considered the ideal Real Madrid manager. With 5 European Cups, he is the most successful manager in the most prestigious club tournament, yet it is his style rather than his success that makes him seem to fit the club so well. Although tactically rigid when starting out as a coach, turning down the opportunity to sign Roberto Baggio and jettisoning Gianfranco Zola at Parma because they didn't fit his 4-4-2 system, working with Zinedine Zidane at Juventus saw Ancelotti become more flexible. From there I always took into account the characteristics of the players to build the system, he said. There is no style for me, no Ancelotti style. My style is not recognised because I change. Most of the time Madrid seem to care little for the input of their manager, signing star players with no concern for how they fit together, leaving it up to the coach to find a way. It's little surprise then that Ancelotti was brought in to manage the club and asked back for a second term in 2021. The Italian showcases flexibility last season, winning La Liga and the Champions League, despite mostly playing without a recognised striker after Karim Benzema left for Saudi Arabia. With the signing of Kylian Mbappe from Paris Saint-Germain this summer, Madrid now had a proven goalscorer to slot into their attack. On paper it seemed to be quite a simple boost to an already successful team, a world-class addition of exactly what they were missing, and yet in practice the side has gotten worse, and once again Ancelotti is left trying to fit the pieces together. The highest profile issue is obviously in attack. At the start of the season Madrid set up in a 4-3-3 formation, with new signing Mbappe spearheading the attack and Vinicius Jr. and Rodrigo either side of him. Mbappe was the main target for criticism, and it wasn't without reason. In order to keep him when Madrid first came sniffing around, PSG gave Mbappe a lot of control over the club, and unsurprisingly this was reflected in his role on the pitch. He has freedom to go on the wing, up front, or as a false nine, said Luis Enrique. Seeing him not exactly hit the ground running at Madrid, it's fair to ask whether this freedom to do as he pleased actually stunted his development. Rather than stay up front, Mbappe will often look to drop off into midfield, or pull out to the left flank. This doesn't have to be a problem. After all, it seemed to work pretty well for PSG. However, is it really the best use of Mbappe's skill set? And perhaps more pertinently, does it benefit Madrid for him to do this? For instance, Mbappe will come short to receive the ball to feet, but he's not particularly good with his back to goal, frequently losing the ball. He's also not exactly a great passer, often giving the ball away with a bad first touch, or just passing backwards, so him dropping off like this does little to link play between the midfield and attack. Nevertheless, if he isn't too closely followed, he can use his space to turn and fire a long shot at goal, or to run at the opposition defence. His dribbling style is generally based around big bursts of acceleration. If defenders stay too close to him, then he bursts past into the space behind them, while if they stand off him, they give him the time and space to do as he pleases. His pace allows him to essentially brute force situations, simply knocking the ball past defenders and getting to it before they can. If the opposition deny him the space to use his pace though, then he doesn't necessarily have the deceptive movement or twists and turns with the ball to escape defenders. This means he generally has more success with his dribbling when he drifts wide, where he can isolate a defender in space and receive a ball facing forward rather than with his back to goal. Again though, if the opposition don't allow him this space to run into, then he's still not a particularly effective dribbler. Most defenders are aware that he wants to cut inside, so the big changes of direction rarely fool them, staying on top of him, while he doesn't have much to offer hitting the byline. This tendency to roam also means that there's frequently no one in goal-scoring positions for Real Madrid, or Jude Bellingham is forced forward from midfield to lead the line instead of him. While Mbappe's desire to drift to the left saw him intrude on Vinicius' space. Given Mbappe's roaming doesn't seem to particularly suit him or Madrid, would it not be better for him to simply stay in attack and lead the line? With his incredible pace, the idea of Mbappe playing on their shoulder is enough to terrify any centre-back, opening up space in midfield by forcing the opposition defensive line back. His pace also allows him to attack dangerous areas from positions that don't look all that threatening, defenders thinking they're safe, only to be left scrambling to keep pace with him. His goal-scoring record speaks for itself. He's clearly a very talented finisher, placing his shots with the inside of his right foot but still managing to get good power on them when he wants to. At PSG, he also displayed an ability to trick goalkeepers, opening up his hips as if to aim for the far post, before slotting it inside the near. Even playing as a more standard number 9 wasn't without its issues though. Mbappe had trouble staying on side, not exactly helped by his tendency to run in straight lines. That threat of his pace running in behind becomes a lot less dangerous if centre-backs can simply step up and take him out of play. Another odd quirk is that he almost exclusively attacks the near post. There's nothing strictly wrong with this, he certainly has the pace to nip in ahead of defenders for a tap-in, but it does make his runs predictable for little discernible reason. The shooting angle at the near post also tends to be tighter, especially with the goalkeeper there, so varying his runs now and again could give him more to aim at. His attraction to the near post is less of a problem and more of an oddity you can't unsee once you notice it, with Mbappe often attacking the near post even when he's closer to the back one. However, there are moments where his positioning is genuinely poor, appearing to simply stand around ball watching. Take this position for example. What is Mbappe trying to achieve here? He's not even actually at the near post, he's in front of it, so he's not in any position to score. It's too tight an angle for a shot and too far for a header. It's particularly frustrating when he takes up these useless positions instead of making a simple run to the back post, but would genuinely help his teammates, providing them with a crossing option. It was easy to point fingers at the new boy though. Mbappe has his weaknesses like any player, but there is ultimately a reason why Real Madrid went to such efforts to sign him, and PSG was so desperate to keep him. If Madrid struggled to get a player of his quality firing, that's not entirely on the player. Moving away from a diamond midfield they used last year, Madrid started this season in a 4-3-3 shape to make room for Mbappe, seeing their attack rearranged. Jude Bellingham was moved back deeper in midfield, while Vinicius and Rodrigo found themselves pushed out towards the touchlines. Previously the wingers could move towards the wings, with one often drifting wide as the other stayed central, but they had room to make runs through the middle and combine together if they wanted. All of them were pushed apart in order to make space for Mbappe though. Vinicius has always liked to pull out wide to the left, giving him space to collect the ball. In classic Brazilian fashion, it's clear he enjoys his dribbling. He rarely misses a chance to show off his footwork or a new trick, and he's also comfortable both cutting inside into the middle and going down the outside. As a result, it's hard for defenders to pin him down, as he's happy to head in whichever direction his man shows him, and can manipulate the ball to stay just out of reach of any outstretched legs. If anything, he's a little too keen to show off his dribbling. It's not unusual for him to hold onto the ball and run himself into a corner, rather than just moving it onto a teammate. Especially early on in the season, Vinicius would come deep to get on the ball and end up losing it, handing the ball over to the opposition in dangerous positions. The Brazilian is often at his best when he's more direct, simply pushing past however he can, rather than attempting something more stylish, but slower and more difficult to pull off. For this reason, Vinicius works really well when he's playing through the middle. Having less space, he's often forced into moving quicker, immediately driving past players, rather than standing them up as he often does on the flank. His comfort with both feet means he can head in any direction, while a central position also puts him closer to goal, allowing him to make better use of his excellent finishing ability. Proven capable of scoring with both his left and right, anytime he manages to find a little gap or angle around the box becomes a scoring opportunity. Although praise of Vinicius seems to mainly focus on his dribbling, it's his passing that impresses most. He's not only got a great eye for a pass, but he also has inventive ways of picking them out, helping to disguise his intentions. On the opposite flank, Rodrigo shares Vinicius' talent for dribbling. He's more direct than his compatriot, constantly driving forward, yet he has the same ability to change direction, going inside or out depending on where the gaps open up. Despite moving so quickly with the ball, he keeps it very close to him. Combined with an extraordinary ability to ride challenges, it's shocking the number of times that Rodrigo appears to have been halted in his tracks, only to come out the other side still in possession, continuing his run. He doesn't quite possess the same passing ability as Vinicius though. He's by no means a poor passer, but he's a lot more basic, far likelier to work in neat little combinations than perfectly weighted through balls. Likewise, he will often have a little purple patch at some point during the season, but isn't as consistent a goal scorer. The third man in last year's attack, Jude Bellingham, was moved back into central midfield. This saw him drop a lot deeper to get on the ball, and so he wouldn't link the midfield in attack in the same way as before. He would still push forward, but often to take up a position in attack rather than between the lines. Is it really any surprise then that Mbappe struggled at the beginning of the season? He joined a new club in a new country and found himself isolated from his teammates on the pitch. Vinicius and Rodrigo would actually come inside into the middle, but it was usually when they reached the opposition box rather than during the build-up. Mbappe finally had people to combine with, however it was when the opposition defence had packed together, leaving him little of the space he needs to really excel. Madrid's way of building up hardly helped matters either. Last season, with a diamond in midfield, Madrid were able to pass the ball through the centre if they wished. At the start of this one, the tip of that diamond was removed. Both Federico Valverde and Bellingham, now playing as a centre midfielder, would come short to pick up the ball, often in line with Aurelien Tchouameni at the base of the midfield. This left no one in a more advanced position to link these deeper midfielders to the attack. This was a problem Mbappe was at least trying to solve by coming short, even if it didn't suit his skill set. Unable to work the ball through the middle, Madrid often resorted to playing it directly to the forwards. They would often give the appearance of looking to play out from the back, bringing most of the team back to bait the opposition into pushing forward, before then playing it over the top of them. Opposition defenders were rarely troubled by this. Mbappe isn't much of a target man, winning less than a third of his aerial duels both this season and across his career. The pace of the front line does mean that these long balls can actually work quite well if the opposition defensive line fails to drop off though. More patient attempts at working the ball forward tended to go down the flanks, with both the wingers and the fullbacks usually out next to the touchline. These attacks were coming from outside the opposition block though, and so to create goal scoring chances they would have to work the ball back inside into the middle. This could be done with neat passing combinations, often with a midfielder or Mbappe drifting across to join in too, or it could just be one of the wingers carrying the ball themselves with a dribble. More often than not though, the ball wouldn't come inside, but would instead be played backwards and switched out to the other flank to try the same thing there. Madrid could get the ball into attack by passing down the wings, but they struggled to break down the opposition defence once they got it there. They didn't have to take this wide approach though. Brahim Diaz was used as an alternative on the wing, but he doesn't really suit staying wide and stretching play. He lacks that explosiveness that Vinicius and Rodrigo have to really terrorise the opposition fullback. Instead, he works far better when he comes inside, acting as that link between midfield and attack. He has the close control to hold onto the ball in these tight gaps, and the passing to feed it through into the forwards. Another alternative was Arda Güler, who was used both on the flanks and as an attacking midfielder in a 4-2-3-1 early in the season. However, he doesn't look quite as comfortable acting as that link between midfield and attack. He has the dribbling ability to beat men and keep the ball in tight gaps, yet he seems to lack the confidence to play it through to the attackers. He looks most confident in his passing when he drops a bit deeper, allowing him to see everything in front of him, so it may make more sense for him to follow in the footsteps of Luka Modric. Madrid didn't have to change personnel to change their playing approach though. Rodrigo's dribbling makes him a threat down the outside, but he's at his best when he has people around him to combine with, so coming inside closer to his teammates makes sense for him. Likewise, Vinicius clearly likes to pull out to the left, however he also excels in the middle, with both his dribbling and his eye for a through ball making him perfect for it. Last season it was typically Vinicius who would stay wide, while Rodrigo remained central, however it wasn't unusual for Rodrigo to come across to the left, seeing Vinicius move into the middle. Early on this season, Mbappe drifting to the left saw him intrude on Vinicius' space, but if the Brazilians swapped positions like with Rodrigo last season, then Mbappe could find his space to roam, while Vinicius could get into goal scoring areas. Both Vinicius and Rodrigo come inside already, especially in the final third, so just encouraging them to do so a bit more often, allowing them to act as the link men while the fullbacks provide the width, could have made it easier to progress the ball into dangerous areas. The downside is that the Brazilians would be taking up space through the centre, blocking the runs of Bellingham and Valverde from midfield. It wasn't just in attack that Madrid had problems early on in the season though. With the ball they would set up in a 4-3-3 shape, however without it they would line up in a 4-4-2. Vinicius would join Mbappe up front, as Bellingham shifted across to the left and Rodrigo tracked back. When pressing, the forwards would each pick up a centre-back, while behind them the midfielders would each follow an opponent, giving them no space to receive the ball. This approach generally worked quite well. By cutting off for short passes and with agile forwards able to put pressure on the defenders, Madrid could force the opposition into kicking the ball long. In midfield, Bellingham is an excellent tackler, his height giving him the reach to get a foot on the ball, as well as a superb sense of timing of when exactly to step in and block an opponent's advance, seeing him frequently win the ball back for Madrid in the final third. Valverde is full of energy without being overly aggressive, staying on top of opponents and denying them space without throwing himself into challenges. This pressing setup was quite loosely organised though. The left-sided midfielder, typically Bellingham, was presumably meant to cover the flank given their defensive shape. When pressing though, they would often be positioned in the centre, picking up an opposition midfielder. The result was that the opposition right-back would be left free, making it quite simple to play around the Madrid press. The Madrid left-back could push forward to press, but he would have to cover a lot of distance to do so, and would open up space in the back line. Even when Madrid don't press, dropping back into their 4-4-2 shape, a similar thing would happen. Vinicius and Mbappe would drop back into the space ahead of the midfield, but they would do little active defending, such as shifting across to block passes or closing down opponents. As a result, Madrid's midfielders would be forced out to defend this area, leaving space behind them for the opposition to exploit. This meant that there were obvious ways to play around, or through Madrid should the opposition want to. Fortunately for Madrid, the opposition still had to get past their defence. Their centre-back partnership was the classic stopper-cover pairing. Antonio Rudiger heads the ball away and uses his physique to claim the ball with tackles, while Eder Militao drops off and covers in behind. This isn't a strict rule. Militao can go in for headers and step up to win the ball, while Rudiger can drop off and sweep up behind. However, as a general rule of thumb, the roles are reversed. Rudiger is fast enough to beat opponents in a foot race, but it looks like it isn't the easiest thing for him physically. He can also look quite heavy-footed, making it difficult for him to quickly turn, so it makes sense that he uses his physicality, holding or blocking off opponents to stop them getting away from him. This can see him give away fouls when he does it a little too blatantly. However, most of the time it's just him utilising his strength in legitimate challenges. Militao is the opposite. He can go in for a challenge, yet it's usually when he can win the ball cleanly, rather than trying to outmuscle his opponent. He will often step out and give an opponent a shove to let him know he's there, but he rarely commits to a challenge, as he's a bit more comfortable allowing an opponent to run at him than Rudiger. Despite his age, Dani Carvajal can keep pace with opposition wingers on the right, with quick enough footwork to match their rhythm and stay close to them. This means he doesn't have to go diving into tackles, but it puts him in a position where he can step in and win the ball should the opportunity arise. On the opposite flank, Ferland Mendy is particularly conscientious to runs in behind him, dropping off to cover the depth rather than getting drawn towards the ball. He can sometimes do this to a fault though, standing so far off his winger to deny them space in behind, but he leaves them the space to do as they please in front of him. Similarly, it's not unusual to see him square up in a one-on-one. This makes it easier for him to defend against players cutting inside, but also puts him on his heels, easier for his man to push past him. Defensively minded and athletic, Mendy is often still able to recover when beaten however. Behind them, Thibaut Courtois is one of the best goalkeepers on the planet. He isn't a modern style of keeper. He is solid if unspectacular with the ball at his feet, capable of finding a teammate with a pass, or remaining calm under pressure. However, sometimes it would benefit him to be a little less calm and simply rid himself of the ball given he is awkward in possession. Likewise, he is happy to leave his line to confront an attacker, however you're unlikely to see him go anywhere near the halfway line as some goalkeepers do. The edge of his box is about as far as he ventures. When he does rush out for a one-on-one, he will spread his arms wide to make himself bigger, then when the opponent goes to shoot, he will split his legs too, looking to block any low shots underneath him. Judged for timing wrong, and Courtois can be left on the floor as an opponent rounds him, however this is rarely an issue. He closes the angle quickly, blocks it with his body and arms, and does his best to ensure the ball can't be slipped under him. He will often use his feet like this to block low shots, especially when he doesn't have time to get set properly. His usual stance is adapted specifically to deal with low shots though. The standard set position taught to goalkeepers sees them keep their feet shoulder width apart, however Courtois keeps his feet wider, allowing him to get closer to the ground.
Wait, can I see the stance one more time?
Yeah. I can go lower.
This lower stance allows Courtois to get down to the ground much faster, enabling him to stop low shots that may otherwise sneak underneath him. The downside to this wide stance is that in order to dive, Courtois must bring his foot back inside, in the opposite direction to where he wants to be diving, in order to push off it, wasting time as the ball flies towards goal. This is rarely an issue though. Standing at a whopping 2 meters tall, Courtois' reach is so large that he can cover the majority of the goal without needing great power in his dives. Shorter goalkeepers have to constantly adjust their feet to put them in position to make a save, whereas Courtois can hold his position and wait, timing his dive for the right moment. Although this lack of movement can give the impression that Courtois is slow, he regularly shows excellent reflexes. It's easier to respond quickly when all you have to do is stick out an arm to reach the ball, rather than taking several steps to get your feet in the right position, simplifying quick reaction saves. Unsurprisingly given his height, Courtois is also confident coming out to claim crosses. Although he tends to parry shots rather than catching them, for crosses he will mainly look to get his hands around the ball, only punching if he's hitting a big crowd of players. Putting the ball close to him at corners is a sure way to waste them. Madrid didn't exactly hit the ground running at the start of the season, but it was injuries to Mbappe and Rodrigo at the end of September that forced their hand, switching to a 4-4-2 shape. Defensively, this didn't change much for Madrid, as they defended in a 4-4-2 shape anyway. If anything, it tightened them up a little, as previously the organisation had been a little free-form, but the setup was basically the same, so the opposition could still play around Madrid's press in the same way as they had previously. It wasn't exactly the most attacking of changes either. Bellingham and Valverde are both good attackers, but they started the season as central midfielders, and now they were taking on the roles of Vinicius and Rodrigo out wide. Box-to-box midfielders who attack the box from deep are a different kind of player to wingers who dribble past multiple opponents, so while it was functional, the setup wasn't exactly the most creative. Madrid would soon face additional problems in defence too, as both Carvajal and Militao succumbed to season-ending injuries. Carvajal was replaced by Lucas Vázquez. Vázquez is a loyal servant of the club, converting himself into a right-back in 2020 to help offer cover for Madrid. However, he isn't a natural full-back and is clearly a downgrade on Carvajal. Vázquez isn't slow, and yet he regularly finds the ball knocked past him by La Liga's quick wingers. Part of the problem is that he will go out to meet the opponent, but then allow them the time with the ball to do as they please, letting them run at him. Vasquez is a strong tackler when he does put a foot in, yet he's reluctant to do so most of the time, and so does little to actually stop his opponent advancing beyond running in front of them. His biggest defensive weakness is defending the back post. He generally gets himself into the right position, but then stops there, allowing the opposition to make runs in behind him. Madrid have conceded multiple goals directly because of this. Valverde is also filled in at right back. With his energy and defensive skills, is a role that suits him, and he could easily excel there in the long term. Tchouaméni was also moved back into defence from midfield to cover for Militao at centre-back. However, the Brazilian's injury gave Raul Asensio the chance to make the step up from a B team. He grabbed the opportunity with both hands. Light on his feet with nice springy footwork, Asensio can quickly change direction or turn. This allows him to quickly dart in to win tackles or intercept the ball. This quick footwork also means that when Asensio makes a mistake, he is able to recover quickly. With a good leap, Asensio is strong in the air too, getting clean contact with the ball. Again, his good footwork seems to help, giving him a solid base to attack the ball. The youngster shows a good awareness of what's happening behind him, not leaving gaps for opponents to exploit. He feels the boots of Militao well, coming across to cover for his teammates. It's often a good opportunity to show off his speed, frequently able to get to the ball ahead of his opponents in a foot race. Asensio also fits in well when Madrid have possession. Both Militao and Rudiger have a great passing range, and the latter will often push forward on the ball. The German possesses a mean shot too, testing opposition goalkeepers with low drives from distance. Asensio has the same ability to pick out a pass, but also a willingness to push forward on the ball, even when the opposition put him under pressure. Fran Garcia has also been given the opportunity to fill in at left back on occasion. The Spaniard is very fast, which allows him to be aggressive, quickly rushing out to tackle his man or intercept a slow ball. This speed also allows him to keep pace with opposition wingers. However, he can be a little too keen to rush out to the flanks, risking missing his challenge or leaving space inside. His boundless energy makes him very useful in attack, overlapping to provide width down the left. Mendy can also provide width on the left, but compared to Garcia, he seems hesitant to really push forward and hit the byline. Despite his age, Carvajal had little problem getting up and down the right flank, and he is an excellent crosser of the ball, consistently able to curl it round defenders to hit the 6-yard box. Likewise, Vasquez can stretch play on the right and is a decent crosser. However, he also has a tendency to cut inside into the middle, narrowing Madrid's attack further rather than offering width. As results remain mixed in the 4-4-2, even with a return of Mbappe and Rodrigo, Ancelotti made more adjustments, this time switching to a 4-2-3-1. This saw Bellingham take the central attacking midfield role, providing someone to link the midfield in attack that was missing in the 4-3-3. The Englishman has stated that he grew up idolising Zinedine Zidane, and the influence is clear to see. Comfortable using both feet, there's a lovely smoothness to his close control, letting the ball roll and shifting his body around it. He hasn't quite got that dancer's elegance of Zidane, but he's still an excellent dribbler. Despite being quite tall, standing at 6'1", he has little issue turning quickly, able to spin 180 degrees in an instant. This makes him useful in this role, able to receive the ball between the lines and immediately feed those in front of him. Bellingham also has a very good range of passing, capable of sending raking long balls out to the flanks, playing short to combine with his teammates, or sliding a through ball into the attackers. This is an element of his game Bellingham could do with working on though, as it's not unusual for him to misjudge a pass or fail to read the body language of a teammate, giving the ball away unnecessarily. Playing as a number 10 also puts Bellingham closer to goal, meaning he doesn't have to cover quite so much ground to make those attacking runs into the opposition box that he loves to do, posing a real goal threat. More useful about this change of position is that it gives Mbappe someone to work with though. Previously, Mbappe would drop off the front line to little success as he isn't very good with his back to goal. Now he can drop off, drawing his marker upfield, then, rather than driving with the ball himself, he can offload it to Bellingham and attack the gap his opponent has left, using his pace to run onto the return ball. Unsurprisingly, Mbappe suddenly looked a lot better when he had someone to work with. To balance out the midfield, as Bellingham was moved forward, Valverde was moved back. The obvious downside to this is that it restricts a lot of the qualities that made Valverde a world-class box-to-box midfielder, stopping him from making those runs into attack from deep. Nevertheless, he still has the skill set to excel in a more restrained role. He has the range to spray passes from deep, and his long shots are so good that he still poses a real attacking threat from distance. His defensive abilities help to provide more security in midfield and protect the defence. Previously, this task was generally left to Tchouaméni by himself. The Frenchman is solid in possession, capable of finding a teammate with a pass, or carrying the ball under pressure, even if he loses the ball occasionally. He is primarily a defensive player though. Tchouaméni possesses great strength, yet he doesn't rely on it to bully his opponents off the ball, instead timing his challenges well to get a clean foot on the ball, whether that be in a tackle or an interception. With his teammates drawn forward to press, Tchouaméni was often left outnumbered in front of the back line though, so the addition of a second midfielder in this area provides better coverage and helps balance out the team. As both Tchouaméni and Valverde were moved into defence to cover for injuries, there have been a variety of partnerships at the base of the Madrid midfield. Although nearly 40 now, Luka Modric still features heavily, and is typically the first player Ancelotti turns to if he isn't already starting. This isn't really much of a surprise, as the Croatian offers a quality of passing that none of the other midfielders can match. Not only does he have the vision to spot potential passes, but he has the technique to pick them out in a variety of ways, dropping a ball with a perfect weight over the top, or slipping one through with the outside of his foot. He also has the close control to show he started his career as a number 10, gliding across the turf as he carries the ball forward. His slight frame means he can't exactly go around pushing players to win the ball back, so he will generally go to ground in a tackle, often giving away a foul. He remains defensively competent thanks to his reading of the game though, as he will intercept the ball instead, avoiding a challenge. Another progressive alternative in midfield is Eduardo Camavinga, although he has missed much of the season due to injury. The Frenchman is very comfortable under pressure, happy to turn out and play forward on the edge of his own box. Able to quickly rotate on the spot, he can shift his body to protect the ball when needed or push forward into attack. He is also a neat passer of the ball, able to slip it through tight gaps for his teammates. That same ability to quickly shift his body when dribbling comes in handy when defending too, enabling him to stick to his opponents when they try to change direction. When he goes in for a tackle, he will often put more of his body into the challenge, creating a firmer barrier for the ball than just sticking out a foot. However, his agility allows him to cover ground and just nip in for a tackle if that is what the situation requires. Dani Ceballos offers another solid option at the base of the midfield. He is a good passer of the ball, but not quite as precise as his teammates. He is okay under pressure, but not one to turn out and go past players like Camavinga or Modric. He is a strong tackler though. His skill set suits sitting at the base of the midfield to provide cover or recycle the ball, giving whoever he is partnered with more freedom. The switch to a 4-2-3-1 may have given more cover to the midfield, but it added a new defensive issue. Whereas previously Vinicius would push up next to Mbappe when defending, now Bellingham did that instead, leaving Vinicius to cover the left flank. He isn't the most defensively conscientious of players however, failing to track opponents when they advance. It's perhaps for this reason that Ancelotti has frequently changed back to the 4-4-2, seeing Bellingham defend the left flank while Vinicius partners Mbappe up front. It's little surprise that with these changes getting Bellingham and Vinicius closer to Mbappe, the Frenchman's form has improved as the season's gone on. Part of it was probably just the need to acclimatise to a new league and teammates and to recover from a knock to his confidence, but these tactical changes have given Mbappe players to actually work off of, rather than being left isolated. Fostering a connection between him and Vinicius in particular made perfect sense, as the Brazilian's eye for a through ball seems tailor-made to supply Mbappe, so simply getting them a bit closer together makes it easier for him to find those runs. Even getting a new star signing firing hasn't got things to finally click for Madrid this season though. They aren't a disaster, still in the hunt for the title in La Liga and advancing in the Champions League, but they aren't exactly setting the world alight either. Every time they look to have finally turned a corner, there's a result not long after to knock them back down to earth. Ancelotti has tried multiple different strategies now, yet each seems to bring with it its own new headache.
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to support the channel. You can get updates on what I'm doing by following on Twitter and Facebook, links are in the description, but most importantly by supporting Holding Midfield on Patreon. Without financial support, I can't justify the time it goes into making these videos to keep the channel alive while also receiving access to premium content. Thanks for watching.